Just wait and see if we get anyone online there for a second.
We are live.
Oh, minute, where's my audio?
Oh yeah, that'll work on that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
Hello and welcome to the second edition of the MMA RoundTable podcast. On this show, we discuss topics that are relevant in MMA world. I'm your host, Paul O'D, and today I'm joined by Liam Óg Griffin, co-host of the MMA Opinion podcast, our newest admin on the MMA Opinion page, Tomas Lann. We have David Hay of the MMA Opinion and the MMA Pocket. And finally, we have MMA Twitter statistician Andy Hickey, or better known as Up the Darce. How are we all doing, lads?
We're good.
All good. Well in, boys.
Very good. I suppose we've all come up with a topic for today that we're going to discuss, and I'm going to throw the floor to Andy Hickey first. I believe you have a topic that you would like to bring up with us for the chat.
Yeah, I suppose so. You see, if you're on the discussion boards on Twitter and Facebook, like myself, you'll see after 58, a lot of talk that Kamaru Usman is now the greatest welterweight of all time, that he surpassed George St. Pierre. And I understand some people debating it. Like George from the welterweight division in 2013. Ronda Rousey came in that period, McGregor came in that period, and they brought a lot more fans to the sport than we had ever had before. A lot of people watching the sport now haven't watched George St. Pierre, and if they have, they're watching it retrospectively, which is always hard to judge how good someone is when you haven't been there to witness what he's done. So, my kind of question to you guys is, where do you see that debate? For me, it's cut and dry that George St. Pierre is the best welterweight of all time. I'd probably say Pat Hughes is second with his record there, and Kamaru was after switching Tyron Woodley to win third. So my question for you guys is, where do you see it? Is Kamaru, after jumping up the spot, is he the most dominant welterweight we've seen?
Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take it. I'd agree with you, GSP. He's definitely has to be number one. The length of his reign, the amount of title defenses he has. I know people will discuss the level of competition, but I think you can only go by what competition you face in your era. And yeah, there just can't be any question about GSP. And Matt Hughes, I would definitely put him second still. Again, he was so dominant for so long. Kamaru, he has looked extremely impressive, but it's still relatively early in his time as champion. So it's very easy to get, I suppose, excited and hyped up and trying to put him up there. But still, I'd put him number 3. I think he's edged Woodley just by the how good he has looked in his fights, and the fact that he's already beaten Woodley, I think just about edges him above Woodley so far for me.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I think Usman has a long way to go, and it's no disrespect to who's in the welterweight division at the moment, but Liam touched on it in our own podcast that the division just doesn't excite us anymore. There's not many guys in the division that are lighting it up and that are becoming clear contenders. Like he's talking now about rematching Jorge Masvidal, and it's just one that doesn't really get us excited from a context perspective.
No.
I suppose for you, Andy Hickey, there we have a question after coming in. We have, is GSP going to fight again, from Craig Northrup? You can take that one there.
I have to say no, he's not. The only fight of interest in is Khabib, and he's got nothing to prove at welterweight. He's got nothing to prove at middleweight, obviously. And he's trying to make a fight with Khabib at 155. I don't see Khabib fighting. I don't see GSP fighting. He's turning 40 now as well. He's a relic when it comes to one of those type of divisions. So I just can't see anyway. I don't want him back. He's got one of the greatest legacies. Who goes out, retires on a championship win? No one anymore. MMA returns don't exist. People just coming back for more and more and more. I hope he doesn't come back.
Yeah. And Liam, kind of where do you land on the GSP Usman debate? And do you think it is a debate?
No, it's not a debate. Not yet. Usman has plenty more to prove. He's only, as we said on the podcast last night, he only just got here. I know he's got a 12 fight win streak, but that's not the same as 11 title defenses by any stretch. And he certainly has all the potential to be pound for pound greatest of all time, but time will tell. I'm not sold yet. GSP still has that, certainly in the welterweight division, and I think other fighters would be ahead of Kamaru on the pound for pound list as well.
Yeah, I did see as well. I don't know, Andy, was it you put it up on Twitter? But there was a comment about GSP casting a shadow over the welterweight division and that it's still there. Is there going to be a champion, and what does a champion have to do to usurp this kind of dominance that he had over that division for so long?
Yeah, like he retired a young man from the welterweight division. You know, he's 32 when he gave up. He fought Johnny Hendrick and he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. Came back for the with Michael Bisping. He's always going to cast a show. Greatness never goes away. You see in any other sport, you watch basketball, people always talk about Michael Jordan. They reference him today. The GSP debate is not going to go away at any level. Kamaru can pass the record, and the debate will always go on. GSP was an enigma. He's one of the greatest of all time. He beat every fighter he's ever faced. The losses were against Pat Hughes and Matt Terry. Came back and beat them. Kamaru was a long way to even be mentioned in the same breath for me.
Yeah, just on to David there, like obviously he's being brought up as a contender against GSP for the run of wins that he has and 13 fights, I believe, in the UFC now. What's your take on his run in the UFC and how long before he's in that discussion with GSP?
Well, I agree with the other lads. It's a long while before he's in that discussion, really. You talk about the caliber of opponent. I think GSP edges that too. I mean, this might be controversial, but I was never the biggest GSP fan. I know he's a lot of people's favourite fighter, but I can't forgive what happened to Dan Hardy, I'm afraid. So
not biased at all.
No, that will never ever leave my memory. I mean, that's one of the few MMA moments that's brought me close to tears. But yeah, I think Usman's got a long way to go. Impressive resume so far, but we can't talk about him in the same breath as GSP yet for me.
Of course. And I suppose, Liam, you did touch on in our podcast kind of that you're unimpressed by the welterweight division right now, and you're just not that keen or interested in watching the fights. Is there any contenders there that are going to make him a bigger star? Is there anyone in that division that the matches excite you? You know already where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I can see you shoehorning your love interest into this conversation from a mile away. We need some Barry White music while Paul reminisces here over Khamzat Chimaev. Yeah, so look, yeah, Chimaev, I think actually Wonderboy is going to make another run. I think he's a bad matchup for Usman. I have yet to make my mind up about Leon Edwards, whether he's ready for it at this stage or not. But yeah, Khamzat, if he makes it past somebody in the top 10, then I'll get on the train with you. But I'm certainly not going to put Khamzat posters up on my wall like you have, Paul.
No posters yet, but I'm willing to hang them up if anyone wants to send me a poster.
Awesome, man.
We are going to send the floor back to Andy Hickey here. Andy, what's your take on who's in the division at the moment? Who's an exciting match? And do you agree with the Jorge matchup that's being touted about?
Well, I think the biggest challenge would be Colby Covington again. I think the first fight was brilliant, an epic fight. Covington just wouldn't go away, and Kamaru got him out of there in the end. The Masvidal fight is obvious what it is. Kamaru's on pay-per-view points. Masvidal's going to sell pay-per-views. Why not go for the money? And he's already beaten him convincingly.
Yeah.
Chimaev, it is what it is. He's there through hype, but he makes it. I didn't like the other, but I was going to watch. And I was going to be entertained by it. Wonderboy, Vicente Luque might have something down the line, but I just don't see anything outside of Colby Covington really that can put it up to him at the moment. Until there's a few more years on him, he's going to be fairly dominant.
Yeah. And David, I suppose we'll give you the last say on this, being that you are from the UK. your Tan Edwards run over, I suppose, the last 18 months and how unlucky he has been. Do you think he's still a legitimate contender there in that division? Do you think he's faced anyone of good enough stock to get that title fight right away? Who would you like to see him fight on March 13th?
I believe he's still got to be considered as a contender, yeah. If you look at his past performances. I mean, some people are saying the welterweight division's a bit sad at the moment, but there's a few good fights there. You've got Bilal Muhammad. He had a good performance at the weekend. He's knocking on the door of, I think he's number 8 or 9 ranked now. Chiesa's doing a bit in there. He just beat Neil Magny. As far as a matchup for Edwards, I mean, I'd like to see him fight Masvidal. That's the fight I'd like to see. But as far as what materialises, we just don't know. I mean, knowing that geezer's luck, he'll probably get a fight and then someone will get COVID or something and it will get cancelled. So I don't want to jinx him, you know. What will be, will be. We'll see. Do
you think he competes on March 13th and who do you believe it'll be against?
I hope so. Who against? I'm not sure on that one. You know, there's a few names in the hat. I wouldn't like to speculate, really.
And just finally, I'm going to go around the whole panel here. Just finally on the welterweight division. Dana has announced that he's saying that it will be welterweights who coach tough. So for you, pick 2 coaches that match up that will fight at the end of the season.
I think Usman and Thompson would be the obvious choice. As far as coaches go, I mean, Stephen Thompson would be great on the Ultimate Fighter. I think he'd be brilliant on there. But it's been a while since we've had an Ultimate Fighter, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been back after about 4 years.
Yeah. I'd go with Usman Thompson.
Yeah, very good. And Andy Hickey, who would you go for the
I would go
division?
With Jorge Masvidal and one Nathan Diaz.
Nate Diaz.
That would be TV I'd want to watch.
I'm on board with that as well. I think if you're bringing back tough, you got to make it exciting.
Exactly. And
Liam,
I can't see Diaz being a great coach. He probably needs something.
As a coach,
just because.
Yeah. Of course. Liam, who is your picks?
Well, apparently I came up with a good idea before Christmas and I completely forgot about it. But Mike Perry, Darren Till would be a cracker. And Mike Perry actually just tweeted yesterday and he put his name in the hat again for a few matchups. So I think that actually might be a runner now again.
Yeah. Very good. And Thomas Lann, who are your picks for the 2 coaches at welterweight?
I think I'd go with Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal. They have that history and that beef, and I think it would be a number 1 contender fight if they don't make Kamaru Jorge, and I think it would be make a big impact bringing back tough with those 2 leading it, and there'd be an awful lot of animosity and a lot of great television. Yeah.
For me, I believe that the original booking that they were looking at Colby versus Jorge, and just for entertainment value, similar to Andy's picks there, purely for entertainment value, I'm on board with that. I just see that as absolute fireworks from start to finish. And of course, you could have the BMF belt on the title. I know there's people are hating on that belt, but it makes the matchup a little bit more interesting at the end. Now we are going to move on to our next topic, and I believe Thomas Lann, our newest member of the MMA Opinion. Thomas, how are you finding it on the page? First off, how are you getting on with everyone in the MMA Opinion admin team?
Great. I mean, it's great to, I suppose, be part of it. And I mean, everyone is so quick, I suppose, to jump on the news. So it's always good you're getting the updates all the time. So I love that. I love MMA, so I love being part of it.
Very good. And the floor is yours. You have a topic for us today.
Yeah, so I thought the weight cutting was quite an important topic after the weekend because I suppose Bobby Green was the most noticeable figure, I suppose, in terms of weight cutting. The fact that he missed out on his fight due to basically issues with his weight cut. But also I thought it affected a couple of other fights. I thought Rodolfo, like he gassed so hard. It feels like based on the size, how big he looked in that cage, that weight cutting may have played a factor. It can't have just been that his cardio is that bad. It can't be that, or that he's, that lactic acid in his muscles. I just think weight cutting must have had some sort of an impact on him. And then I suppose on a positive note, moving away from weight cutting, Alexa Grasso and how well she did against Barber. So I suppose what I'd be asking people is what should be done about weight cutting? Who should be responsible? Because everyone is it's going in a circle. Are the fighters? Are the trainers? Is the UFC? Are the commissions? It's kind of circling all the time. So everyone is passing the buck, and I'm just interested to hear, I suppose, what you think.
Yeah, David, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, weight cutting's always been an issue. I know it's really bad in Muay Thai sometimes. A couple of young fighters have died over there. I think it's managed. I mean, there's always a few ideas banded around about changing the whole system and having on the day weigh-ins and stuff like that. But I feel like it's one of them things. Like, people are going to always want to cut the weight to have that advantage on fight night, and unless the rules change like systematically for everybody, then there's always going to be missing weight and fighters passing out and stuff like that. So if anything, it's got to come from the top, really, if there's going to be any change for me.
Yeah, Andy?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the way the Californians did it. With someone asking them if she was fighting the random they released the weigh-in weights and the cage weights as well, so you can see the percentage gone up. Like, had up 18%. She received the ban from the CSXC. It's only stopped competing in that state, but I like where it's more in that state again. But there is, there's a lot of talk online that weight cutting is this weight cutting and that. But one guy you see the weekend, Kelvin Gaslum, he gets so much views online for fighting out welterweight, being a smaller man. People are questioning why he doesn't go to welterweight, and he'd have to kill himself to get down there. The same parents will have to do at the time. Weight cutting to me, it does come from the top. It comes from the fighter. It has to be monitored at a safer level if you can make it a topic, and it's up to the fighter at the end of the day. So the only real depth we saw in the last season was 1, and they changed it completely now, and you can see the likes of Demetrius Johnson's competing at 125 now in Calvin. So there's things to be said about it. I'm no expert on it, but I do like what he has to say.
Yeah, and Liam, same question to you.
Yeah, it's just a ridiculous feature that we have of the sport, and I know it's it's not something that we can get rid of easily. There are a couple of, as Andy was saying, one championship have improved it slightly with their multiple weigh-ins, weeks out, and stuff like that. At the amateur level, we have same-day weigh-ins now. Sorry, my screen went off there for a second.
You're right.
Sorry, hold on.
Liam is doing somersaults here.
Yeah. So, oh Jesus, am I still there?
You are, yeah.
You're still live. You're just a bit all over the place, and we've officially lost Liam. Yeah. We're going to go back to you here on this one, Thomas. And I just have a little question for you on this topic. Andy made a good point there about Gaslum being under pressure to get down to welterweight, and then anyone it seems that misses weight, there's a topic about should they be cutting that much weight, and should they be put under so much pressure to get down to a lower weight class. Mike, to you, I suppose, is Kelvin Gaslum in the right division, and maybe he's competing against people that should be at 195?
I think that Kelvin, I think Kelvin could be fighting at 170, and I think he could be a top contender there. I think, to be honest, it's hard to know about anyone's diet or body shape, but I would go back to Aldo and all the talk for years about him going up to lightweight. And then for a finish, he went down to bantamweight. And he actually said he felt so good because he'd finally gotten a proper dietitian, and he'd probably properly addressed that. I don't feel that Kelvin Gastelum properly addresses weight cutting or diet. And I feel like if he did, he probably would find he could make 170 comfortably. And he's always fighting people who are larger than him. So he was out wrestled by Chris Weidman, and that was the only win on Chris Weidman's record for years. Like a lot of his wins have been against people basically with a foot out the door or near retirement and pushing 40. So I think a lot of times his name gets pushed to the top in conversation about the division, but really I think he should really be in welterweight, I think.
Yeah. And Liam, I suppose we'll go back to you there. What were you getting at before you started doing somersaults and bail?
Before I do somersaults, yeah. Well, I think Kelvin Gaslum is on the seafood diet from what I saw online. It's whatever he sees, he eats. But yeah, so in terms of weight cutting, yeah, one championship have it. In the amateur, we have same day weigh-ins. That really doesn't sort it because you just had people recovering in less time. So it hasn't really kind of fixed it at all. What we have seen, there's a chap from Liverpool. His name is Ben Knightley, I think is his name, and he did a documentary on I believe it was Channel 4 or BBC on some chap cutting weight, and so he's very, like, he did a PhD on this. He's a dietitian or he's got some sort of nutrition, strength and conditioning PhD. And he did a lot of study on this using the IMAF championships as his kind of his cohort for studies and stuff. And he was able to do something interesting. He had a hydration test, so basically like a piss test, right? And then within a few minutes, he was able to tell what level of hydration you were at. Now that, in conjunction with your current weight, would give you a fair weight analysis. Do you know what I mean? So as opposed to saying, we say your absolute weight is 75 kilograms, and you have one guy who's fully hydrated, and you have another guy who's spent 2 weeks in the sauna, and then they're obviously not the same size humans because one is dehydrated and one is not. Maybe we should be looking at having a combination of somebody who's at 75 kilograms but also at a level 10 of hydration, whatever the unit is there. And then if you use those in combination with each other, then you will get a fairer representation of sizes, and then also have people under less stress to actually cut the water weight, which is what's the dangerous part about the weight cutting is the dehydration part. If we could get rid of that, so like measure people at full hydration, and then everybody across the board is fully hydrated, and then you even out the playing field in a much fairer way. I think that's a solution, but how workable that is in the grand scheme of things, I don't know. But it's my least favorite part of the whole game anyway, the weight cutting.
Yeah, definitely. And David, just to you there as well, we do have to discuss, like we touched on Gaslum, we touched on Bobby Green, and Tomas mentioned about Rodolfo Vieira. What did you make of Rodolfo gassing so quickly and looking so poorly in that fight? And do you think that was purely down to weight cut?
Well, I know DC said it's because it was too much muscle, and if you got the fat, the air passes through the fat. But I don't know.
Easy coming from DC, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But I mean, I don't know how much truth there is to that. But yeah, I mean, it was embarrassing, really. If he's obviously, not 100% there, because that was like, I've not really seen that level of fatigue before that quickly. But there's obviously issues, and like Liam said, there is ideas and solutions out there, but it's just implementing them and implementing them in the right way. Do you know what I mean? So, like you said, it's there across the board.
Yeah, of course. Look, for me, the weight cutting issues, as much as it's a huge problem, like I just can't see this changing anytime soon. You look at the rest of the rule sets in MMA, and they can't even get a unified set of rules in all states in America, let alone the rest of the world. This is something I know ONE have done a great job with their weight cutting kind of regulations, but the state of the rules in MMA, there's a lot more to be done outside of just weight cutting, and a lot more that they need to fix up. I think the answer will have to be that there's unified rules and there's one body that governs all states and all countries. And I suppose IMAF are kind of the leading or organization that are kind of heading that direction. They're over the amateur MMA now. But I suppose if they got their hands on professional MMA and they were able to set the rules across the board, maybe we could see something. But I think until that time, we're no closer to any situation being solved there. I'm going to throw the floor to Liam Óg Griffin. I believe you have an interesting topic for us today.
Yeah. So I don't know how the hell I got stuck with this one, but anyway, let's dive in. So as our audience from the States will know, we had a change of administration over in the States. Joe Biden, now the president, and he passed a law. I'm not 100% up to speed with exactly the details of the ins and outs of all of the different articles within the law, but basically it brings up the whole transgender issue again, which we had a bit of controversy back in 2013, 2014 in MMA, but now with this new law, kind of has resurfaced and opened a lot of old wounds. There was a feature article online as well. With, so basically, the person in MMA that we're talking about here is Fallon Fox, who is a male to female transgender person, and who has fought professional MMA in the women's division, and for a number of fights, just absolutely smashed all the girls. There was controversy over whether there was some injuries in terms of, I read an article saying 2 cracked skulls. Actually, when you dig into that a bit further, it was 1 broken orbital, which like an orbital
commonplace
break
in MMA. Yeah,
it's more commonplace. It's not as dramatic as 2 cracked skulls. Apparently, the second cracked skull was a misnomer. That didn't happen at all. And then the other thing that happened was you had the picture, the side-by-side picture, and that they used to go with the article was actually Kay Hansen in the UFC, I believe. A totally different fight altogether. But Kay was covered in blood after her fight, and then they put that with the Fallon Fox. So there's a lot of kind of there's a lot of hyperbole going on with this story. But yeah, it was just something I kind of I had an encounter. No, let me finish this story now before you jump to conclusions, right? I had an encounter in the MMA world with this just a couple of years ago when one of my students, a female student, entered a jiu-jitsu competition, and we got a call from the promoter of the jiu-jitsu competition saying, look, there's a transgender male to female athlete in your student's category. Have you guys got any objections to it, and can we go ahead? And I'm like, I actually don't even know if I have an objection to it. I don't know anything about this. What, like, I don't know, is it fair? Is it not fair? What the hell? So I ended up going down a bit of a rabbit hole and going through some of the precedents that were set in other sports, and it's basically track and field and athletics that has the longest track record in this. And there's a really interesting video by a YouTube channel called Vox, VOX. They're kind of like an investigative journalistic channel, and they have a really good feature on it, and going down through the history of how they kind of classify male and female athletes. And back in 1966, it was a physical exam. So basically, like, it was like meat and veg, you're in this side; no meat and veg, you're on that side. And then that wasn't seen to be the done thing. So then they started testing.
What was it they called it? They called it a nude parade, wasn't it?
When a nude parade, yeah. And I can just imagine, like, the embarrassments that athletes must have had. First of all, to be subjected to a test, like, you don't look like a girl, so we're going to test you. I mean, that must have been horrific in the first place. But anyway, they got rid of that a year later, and they went and tested chromosomes, and obviously XX for the females, XY for the males. But I don't know why that was discarded in 2011. I don't know, is it because the issue has now become with identifying as one gender or the other, whether it's more of a kind of an ideological separation rather than a biological separation, and is that where they're at, you know? So now, since 2011, it's been a testosterone test, which raises another problem, because you've got actual female athletes, genuine female athletes, who have high levels of testosterone. And one in particular is Caster Semenya, who is a long distance runner, or she's a long distance runner from South Africa, and she's genuinely born a female, but has such high testosterone that she's been banned from competing because that's the measure. But anyway, back to MMA, right? I digress. Should Fallon Fox be allowed to fight in the female division? What's your take? Has anybody got an opinion on that?
And we'll go Andy here first. What do you think?
Well, Fallon Fox is the most well-known combat sport person to do it, right? She came in and she lost to Ashley Evans-Smith.
Yeah.
So if you lose to Ashley Evans-Smith, you're not the world's greatest combat athlete, in my opinion, given her track record. I don't agree. If someone wanted to turn around and Jake Thomas 145 in a male from SPG turned around and wanted to fight her, claiming changed sex, I don't think I'd agree with that. But I can understand it from someone from a very young age grew up and made that change, wanted to compete with sport. I can see, place for it. I do think we live in a world where, especially with Joe Biden, we have to please everybody, but we have to remember that safety at the same time is imperative. This is a dangerous sport, but we need to keep it a safe sport. Blurred lines. I don't want to get cancelled either, so I'll say Fallon Fox, the only case we've had that picture that surfaced like Kay Hansen made it look like, the world's ever. She's a poor athlete, a poor fighter.
Yeah. Just for myself, obviously, look, it is a tentative subject, and you can't just go branding around it. You're against this, you're against that. My issue here is if they got to a point where they believed that in athletics, where girls are just running 400 meters, 800 meters, and they believed that high testosterone, and they did studies on this. Now there was some issues over the studies, and they were debated back and forth whether they were legitimate, etc. But if we're saying the high levels of testosterone is making it unfair for them to compete in athletics, MMA is a brutal sport and it's a dangerous sport. My worry here is high levels of testosterone in MMA gonna end badly for somebody? I know your point that she lost to Ashley Evans-Smith, and it's a fair enough one. It's not exactly the biggest star in MMA, or she's not the most competitive, but it's a bit of a worry that someone with much higher testosterone can compete. What do you think, David?
I mean, it's the way I always thought it was that if you're born male, your bone structure is denser than that of a female, and physical attributes like that. But like the lads have touched on, if there's women out there willing to fight her, then who are we to say that they shouldn't? You know what I mean?
That's true as well, yeah.
And like you say, it's a tentative subject. It's I don't want any hate mail, so I'm going to sit on the fence with this one and say, yeah, why not?
No problem. And Mr. Thomas Lann?
I used to have a much stronger opinion on it in each direction, and I suppose when you look at it objectively, there is a physiological difference between men and women, and that's why there is a separation in sports. But then I suppose not every man has the same level of testosterone. Not every man is built the same size and dimensions. So it becomes an incredibly hard thing to measure, because you will have people who men who can't compete in MMA, and some of that may be to do with physical attributes that they're lacking in terms of maybe their short arms, or it could be a range of factors, but that can be a significant one. And I suppose nearly you'd have to do it, I think, on a case-by-case basis, or unless there's some sort of scientific way of measuring, I suppose. We'll say if somebody again is transgender, if there is a marked advantage that they're coming in with, like bone density or something like that. But I don't know how they would go about measuring that. So I'd have to sit on the fence on this one.
Yeah, it's certainly a tricky one. Just before we move on to the next topic, I will say if you're watching live, be sure and comment in if you have an opinion on anything we're talking about, and we'll throw up the comments here and we might give it a discussion if it's worthwhile. I'm going to throw the floor to David now, and I believe you have a topic for us.
Yeah, I just want a quick word really on a fighter's retirement these last couple of days. Stefan the Skyscraper Struve has announced his retirement. Obviously, you know, been around a long time. I think he's been in the UFC since 2009. Now, this is a guy who's 7 foot tall. So you'd like to imagine that is a good advantage, a distinct advantage when it comes to fighting another man. There's not going to be many that are as tall as you. And it started out that way, you know. I think he went 16 or 17 for 2 in his first, 20 fights. But obviously his UFC debut, he got quite badly knocked out by Dos Santos, if I remember correctly, Junior.
Yeah.
And I just feel like he's a fighter that never really reached his true potential. He never really learned how to master that excessive reach advantage he had over nearly everyone he fought. He wasn't aggressive enough for me. I don't think he wasn't a killer. And I feel, especially in the heavyweight division, you've got to be a killer, because one strike is going to end these fights. But 13 UFC wins, 8 performance bonuses in there. Does he go down as one of the? I think actually he retired and he was joint most finishes in the heavyweight division. So he only needed one more finish to actually have that record.
That was, I believe, that he had the most knockout losses, though. No,
was it?
Luckily for us, we do have a statistician here on the line, Mr. Andy. We'll throw it to you.
Derek Lewis, 11.
Derek Lewis has the record for 11. Okay, and what's Stefan Struve record? That he was tied most losses, KO losses, is it?
Yeah, Frank Mir, Alistair Overeem, Gabriel Gonzaga, Stefan Struve, all been knocked out 8 times in the UFC in that record. So Stefan gave up his best record. It only leaves 3 and left open to claim the 9th.
Yeah, but that's not exactly a record you want, so maybe that's the reason he got out of there in time. Yeah, just back to you, David, there.
I'm just trying to put in a good word for the fella, but there you go. That's why
I'm having none of it.
Every day's a school day, man. There you go. But yeah, I guess my question to everyone would just be, was it the right decision? Did he retire? I mean, this is a fella who's had a few bad injuries. I think he's had his jaw broken more than once. Suffered some bad knockouts. So do you guys think it was the right decision, or should he have gone on to cement his legacy a bit more? And where do you see him as one of the division's, top fighters? Is he in there or?
Yeah, no, not for me. He had some great wins, but I think over the length of his career in the UFC, he just showed a lot of shortcomings. He never seemed to be able to get off the fence if somebody was able to back him up. He wasn't able to, I suppose, use good footwork to get away. Mark Hunt was able to close the distance and knock him out. There's so many examples of fighters who just there's no comparison when it comes to, again, that reach. He just never seemed to be able to use it. Some of that could be that he didn't have the killer instinct. And sometimes when you have somebody who's that tall, there can be physical issues like circulation or vertigo. So who knows in the middle of a fight if something like that starts to play in and has some sort of an effect. So, Volkov is, I suppose, the person I would say compares most similarly to him at the moment in the UFC, and he doesn't seem to have those kinds of issues. But again, I suppose everyone is different. So, I think he got out at the right time for sure.
And Liam?
Yeah, I suppose he hasn't reached the heights we expected him to. Sorry about that.
Hey, someone had to do it.
The puns. I was trying to hold back.
Yeah, I'll just leave now. But no, I think I think he just didn't evolve with the game. I think he came in with a massive physical advantage over much of his competitors, but just the game passed him on, and he didn't have that kind of he didn't have that consistent streak to get him to the title. And yeah, that's and we've often talked about this on the podcast as well. I feel the time to retire is if you can no longer be the champion. And I think definitely with the heavyweight division in its current form, he's not in the picture for title shots. The other thing as well is that because if you think about like having long levers means that like whatever is furthest from the fulcrum is moving fastest. If you're swinging a leg kick or you're swinging punches, then having long levers means that your fist at the outer edge of the swing is moving faster than somebody with shorter arms and shorter legs. But that goes the other way as well. His head is so far away from his center of gravity that when he gets a shot, his head rocks back like he's one of those inflatable dolls that you punch and they pop back up. Like, and that happened to him on multiple occasions. Like he hit the overhand shots used to murder him. I think it was Big Country Nelson knocked him out with one of those, and you know, so like that, it's a big issue, you know. So now, as you said, there are other taller fighters. Semi Schilt was another 7-footer as well, and I just think his core strength wasn't strong enough to sustain his body length. I think he was kind of more gangly or something like that. Having said that, I wouldn't fight him, but it's the right decision. Now is get out while you can still remember your kids' names. And yeah, I think it's the right time.
Mr. Andy Hickey.
Hey, look, he retires with the only man to have a winning record against Liam Óg. That's something to say. So he did a good job for Europe. I'm a massive fan of European MMA. He's got a second most efficient European fighter in the UFC. He never realized his potential. He came in as the next big thing. I can get any to a degree. I know Liam explained it far better than me that he was Chinny, but you know, he just didn't have it. He never had it. He left for some like McCurry and I think Mark Hunt and Stefan Struve is the biggest size and freaking height in the history of the UFC. So he has left his mark on the sport at least.
Yeah, definitely. Before we move on to the next topic, we have a question from another one of our MMA admin team. We have Ben Doucette is on the line, and he's asking, did you see Mike Perry's call out of Darren Till and Kevin Holland last night on Twitter saying he wanted to move to 185? Did any of you guys see that?
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about earlier when I said that it might be a case that he was kind of putting himself back in the picture for the Ultimate Fighter against Darren Till. But yeah, no, middleweight's a bad idea for him. He needs to stay at welter and just stay off the cocaine.
He called out.
He said,
"Sorry, he called out Joaquin Buckley."
Go on, Andy. Sorry, yeah.
He called out Joaquin Buckley, which was an interesting one.
That answers Ben's next question. Was there was someone else and he can't remember? Yeah.
Yeah, you by the Alessio Chico. So what a weird call out. Like Harry's a different kind of animal, isn't he? A weird guy.
A different kind of person, yeah, definitely. There's something a little bit amiss there, I think. He's one of those guys that's liable to do anything. We were having a little bit of a conversation about him on our own podcast there yesterday, I believe, or was it Sunday? I'm losing. So our final topic of the day is we are going to talk about some upcoming fights. And March and April are absolutely stacked. So if we just look at March in the UFC, you have UFC 259, which is a triple header of title fights. You have Jan Blachowicz versus Izzy Adesanya. You have Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson. You have Peter Yan versus Aljo Sterling. And then you have 2 weeks of fight cards, which are headlined by Edwards versus To Be Determined. You have Brunson versus Holland. And then UFC 260 is Miocic Ngannou and Volkanovski versus Ortega. Absolutely phenomenal fights in the next month. My question to you guys is, obviously with COVID and everything, we know that some of these fights are going to be lost, or we assume that some of these fights are going to be lost. Which fight are you most looking forward to in the month? And what's the one fight that for you just absolutely cannot fall through? We're going to go to Mr. Andy Hickey here first.
Well, I'm going to cheat here, and I'm going to just slip into the first week of April, and I'm going to go with Rumble Johnson and Yoel Romero. That's
very good.
Fireworks, amazing fight, and it's really after reinvigorating what Bellator done over there, bringing huge eyes, and I just think that's an absolute cracker.
Very, very good. And Thomas Lann, what's your can't miss fight of March and April?
So I would go with, I think, Peter Yan and Aljo. I think that's well overdue at this stage. I know Jose Aldo got kind of his opportunity in there, and there's been some delays with it, but I think for sure that fight is going to, I suppose, settle it. For me, Aljamain has been number one there for since his win over Corey Sandhagen. But I think that the depth of his his win streak has been far more impressive than Peter Yan's. I mean, Uriah Hall, Jose Aldo is by far Peter Yan's best win, and I just think that Aljo has done a lot more in the division and deserves the belt, and he certainly deserves to fight for it. So that's the one I can't wait for.
Very good, Mr. David Hay.
I'd have to agree with Tom now. I feel like Yan and Sterling's going to be the most competitive, one of the most exciting ones. I am also really looking forward to Yan and Adesanya. Obviously Adesanya moving up. I feel like Adesanya can do it. I feel like that will be an upset. But like you said, there's so many great fights coming up. We're blessed. We've been blessed over the last 12 months, and the next 12 months look just as good. So good times ahead.
Yeah, and you both pointed to the bantamweight division there in that fight. And of course, you also have some amazing bantamweight fights that are outside of the title fight in the next 2 months. And Ben Doucette, again, just comment there, sleeper fight of the month is Dominique Cruz versus Casey Kenny, and it's hard to disagree with him there. That is another phenomenal matchup. For myself, I think the bantamweight is the one that I really want to see as well, and not just because it's an amazing matchup, but purely because the bantamweight division needs to move on. There's so many contenders there at 135 pounds right now, and there's so many interesting matchups to make. And you've Corey Sandhagen after that phenomenal performance waiting in the wings as well. So for me, that's the one that needs to stay together, needs to get done for the division to move on. Liam, for yourself, what's the fight that you can't miss in March or April?
Well, I think for me, the Izzy and Jan Blachowicz and the Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson are both foregone conclusions. I see Izzy and Nunes just having easy wins in those fights. Volkanovski doesn't interest me at all. I have no interest in that at all. I agree. Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan that's going to be a phenomenal fight. However, it's the heavyweights that I'm most interested in. I'm really fascinated to see, can Miocic not get stay away from getting knocked out early and do exactly what he did the last time to Ngannou. And of course, because we've got our heavyweight here in SPG Cork, I reckon he's going to be fighting like some of these guys in the next 10 years if they're still around. Ngannou is about 100 years old, isn't he? Miocic is a fireman, so he might be he's old enough as well. So maybe not those two guys, but anything in the heavyweight division, I'm always keeping a close eye on. But I think Miocic did so well in the first fight. I'm fascinated to see, can he do it again against such a dangerous power striker.
Yeah, and of course that heavyweight is Ryan the Hulk Spillane, who trains out of SPG Cork City, who will be making his Bellator professional debut this year, hopefully. My next question pertaining to those fights is we'll stick to the UFC for a moment. So we just saw the welterweight belt on the line, and we know Kamaru Usman doesn't fight that often, and it appears as though he might be going to the tough house, so he'll be aiming it towards the end of the summer. Now you have, in the next 10 weeks or thereabouts, you have 3 title fights on one card with 4 belt holders, and in the next 2 weeks later you have 2 title fights, and one of them is a double champ as well. It's looking like they're stacking all these fights up, but when we hit April, March, and May, June, are we going to have any champions left to see? Because at the moment, the only champions that aren't booked are the 2 flyweight belts, which would be Davison Figueiredo and Valentina, and the strawweight in the women's, which is Weili Zhang, and of course lightweight, but we don't see that coming into the picture anytime soon. So my question to you guys is, what are they going to do at the start of the summer when there is no titles, and what pay-per-view events are we going to see? And we'll go to David Hay.
I feel like summer is going to be McGregor Poirier, isn't it? That's going to be the big summer slam, as it were. But like you say, there's plenty of contender matchups to make. There's plenty of exciting fights on the roster. So I think we'll be all right. But as far as champions go, I think before the end of the year, we'll see another title fight, definitely. Possibly in that lightweight division. We don't know what's going on with Khabib. He might come back. He might not. I don't think anyone really cares anymore, but we'll see.
It's like beating a dead horse at the moment, definitely.
It just, yeah.
And Andy Hickey, I suppose, what are we going to see in the pay-per-view events in May, June, July? And because we know the UFC aren't going to put Valentina headlining a pay-per-view. We just know that's not going to happen. Or Bailey for that matter. So what are we going to see on these pay-per-view events?
You'd have to assume that Conor and Poirier is going to take probably July, maybe the International Fight Week might go with that. Diaz will headline a pay-per-view. Masvidal has the potential to headline a pay-per-view. They're champions, but they're not pay-per-view draws to a degree. And I think we'll probably see there's talks of moving on Whitaker and Costa and Torian onto the same card. I think when Adesanya beats Blachowicz, we'll probably see an instant belt at middleweight as well. Because they're not going to make the turn around that quick. But, I think a lot of the summer work will have to be carried by McGregor again.
Yeah, and the same question for you, Thomas. What do you see in May, June, July, and what belts do you think will be holding up the pay-per-view cards?
I think behind the scenes they're trying to get Khabib GSP. I think the UFC is probably working on something like that. And then obviously lightweight. And the big one maybe is, because there hasn't been much talk about John Jones at heavyweight, maybe they're hoping for a quick turnaround with Izzy, that they'll actually be able to entice Jones back if he beats Yan. So maybe that could be a summer fight that they would try and do, because it's just been so quiet on Jones at heavyweight. And Stipe is so if Stipe wins, it could be another year before he fights again. So is Jones going to wait around again that long? I don't think so. Yeah.
And Liam, what do you think is going to be the pay-per-view main events for the start of the summer? Do you see any big shocks coming in there? Do you see the return of the BMF belt? I know you're a big fan of that belt. So.
Oh yeah, love it. Yeah, no, I was going to say the BMF belt is probably kind of one in the back pocket, it's kind of like a mini belt that they can do. And definitely if they bring in the bad bitch belts, there's so many fights they can make for that. They could even put Fallon Fox in for that one.
And of course, I believe you've trademarked that overnight since you mentioned it yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. As you say, like they're putting all their eggs in their basket for the start here. But I do know that Dana White has mentioned that he wants to be the first sports to have a sellout stadium back from COVID. So maybe they'll do something where the event is the event or the crowd being back is the main event, if that makes any sense, rather than an actual title fight. I don't know. That's above my pay grade, Paul.
Yeah. And I suppose finally then we are going to look at April, and of course you have UFC events, big ones, but you have the return of Bellator, which is people have been waiting for quite some time. What fight has been announced? Of course, you have the featherweight semi-final between Patricio and Emmanuel Sanchez. You have the light heavyweight Grand Prix, the quarterfinals of that, and you have the bantamweight belt on the line, Juan Archuleta versus Sergio Pettis. Which fight most excites you and all of that? I know Andy kind of threw us under the bus and gave his pick already, but is there any other fights, Andy, that excite you on in the Bellator, what's been announced so far?
Yeah, look, it's always great to see people come out and enter a classic fighter. Archuleta and Sergio Pettis will be good as well, but that light heavyweight Grand Prix is brilliant. Like, I love the matchmaking, what they've done there. Because, the four originals, we'll call them, from Bellator: Davis, Nikita, Nemkov, and Bader. They've all fought each other a number of times. Davis has fought all three. Bader's lost two of them by KO. Nemkov has beat Bader, and he's fought against Davis. So they bracketed those four together, and they brought in the new guys: Romero, Johnson, Yagsher, Davlesia, and Yagsher Murdoch out there, and Corey Anderson. And if they bracketed those together, two on either side. So regardless what we'll see the Nemkov Davis in fight, either Rumble or Romero, and it's just great matchmaking. What Bellator are doing is brilliant. we have a lot of interest with the Irish fighters top, so I really want to see Bellator bring it this year.
Very good. And Mr. Thomas Lann, what fight are you most looking forward to in the from what's been announced from Bellator so far?
I would say Yoel Romero and Rumble, but I'm also the most nervous for it because we haven't seen Rumble since he's lost to DC. What kind of Rumble are we going to see now? He's I think 36 now, and Yoel, I suppose it depends on what he will look like at light heavyweight. Really, is he going to have more energy? Is he going to be more active? Is he going to feel his gas tank holds up? I really think that whoever wins that fight is going to the final. So I'm just really excited to see what happens.
Yeah, and David Hay, what are you looking forward to from the Bellator fight so far?
I'd have to say that the fight I'm most looking forward to is the rematch Bader-Machida. I think that's a really interesting one. Obviously, Machida knocked Bader out, I think, when they fought in the UFC. Obviously, Romero and Rumble is going to be brilliant. Well, we hope. I mean, even though Romero's lost, four of his last five, is it? Or three of his last four, something like that. He's still thought of as top tier. There's not many fighters that can say that after losing 4 out of 5. But like we say, what Rumble are we going to get? The testing's not as strict for Bellator as it is for the UFC, is it? So, it could be fun. Someone might pop, someone might get in there and pop, and that might be it, TKO. But we'll see. Some great
Bellator won't test them.
Yeah, Bellator have made some moves. To be fair to them, they're trying. So the Grand Prix is a great idea. I'm looking forward to that, definitely. All the matchups are good. All the matchups are interesting.
Very good. And Liam Óg Griffin, I know you've an invested interest in Bellator as well. What are you most looking forward to? Obviously, outside of the debut of Ryan Hulk-Splan, what are you looking forward to in Bellator this year?
I love the light heavyweight Grand Prix, but I'm most excited just to see all the Irish fighters getting back in there, as Andy was saying. I see James Gallagher, after moving over to the States for a few months, is looking likely to be on a May card, and I'm sure a few of the other lads will be on there. Brian Moore, Kiefer, Peter Queally, all of those guys have fought in the States already, so they will find it easy to get their visa sorted and get over there. The fact that Bellator have committed to 2 shows a month for the rest of the year in the Mohegan Sun is phenomenal. All they need is momentum. Like, they just need to keep on doing what they're doing. And if there's any American chicks listening in, I have a big heavyweight there that he's a good-looking fella and he's willing to do anything to get a visa, so he'll marry anyone. And he'll, even some fellas, if you want to marry a Hulk, let's get him a visa. Because
I love the way you preface this. I love the way you preface this by saying good-looking women, as if Hulk would have a choice in that.
Yeah, you're pimping the guy out, man.
I've been pimping him out for years, but yeah, like we're trying to get a visa sorted for him because unfortunately there isn't much going on in Europe for Bellator this year, just because they're finding it so difficult to find a venue or a country that they can host the show in. So like for fighters who have a visa to get into the States, that's worth its weight in gold at the moment. So we're trying to sort that. So yeah, any man or woman out there that wants to marry the Hulk, he likes long walks on the beach. Yeah.
On that note, we are going to end it very shortly. We do have a couple of comments coming in from our followers. So there's one here, and it could take up the whole screen. I don't know, but we're going to throw it up anyway and give it a quick read out. So we have Sean Wallace said, "Hi all, can we talk about how Fight Pass isn't showing pay-per-view main events in Ireland? I'd love to get Dana's ear and explain to him that there's no way I'm paying money out for a satellite I don't need and a sports channel I don't need in order to see the pay-per-view." And I couldn't agree with you more, and I know a lot of the panel here are from Ireland. What do you make of what's happening with the BT relationship with the UFC at the moment?
I'm good with it.
David there.
As you guys know, I'm in England. Obviously it's harsh, but it doesn't really affect me, to be brutally honest. So
yeah. No problem. And we will go to Mr. Thomas Lann.
So, yeah, I suppose it just shows that Ireland isn't really a priority market for them to address this. So, yeah, I guess as long as they consider Ireland a relatively small market, it'll remain a low priority for them. But, yeah, it seems like something that's ridiculous to be ongoing for so long.
Yeah, I think the issue here is that it was a Conor McGregor card. Liam, can you just touch a little bit on this, that UFC 257 was so inaccessible to Irish people, given that's where he's from?
Yeah, it seems ridiculous. Until he becomes the champ again, we're not going to be seen as priority. But if I'm not mistaken, the rest of Europe is in the same boat as Ireland. It's just the UK that has the iPlayer sort and BBC, but I believe mainland Europe have a problem getting the pay-per-views as well.
That's the Bellator issue. That's the Bellator issue. He's talking about the UFC issue, getting it on that we have.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about as well.
Or a Sky Dish. Okay.
Yeah, no, but isn't mainland Europe finding like they don't have a TV deal on mainland Europe for UFC either?
They have different deals with different countries. No, they have different deals with different countries.
Okay, all right. I don't know what I'm talking about. So,
moving swiftly on to Andy Hickey.
I'm great with it. I don't have any issue. UFC is so accessible in Ireland since day one. Like we've been able to watch. I remember in Atlanta, in the noughties there, and we've always had it on.
Yeah.
If you're paying for your satellite, we've always had it available. I know pay-per-view came in about 3 years ago, and it caused a small bit of an issue. But no, I think the UFC is wonderful in Ireland. Bellator is the problem now.
Happy enough with it.
Forward, but yeah.
Hopefully Bellator get that ironed out before there's some big shows.
And he's easily pleased.
And we do have another comment in there. Yeah, sorry, go on, Dev.
I was just saying Andy's obviously easily pleased.
We do have another comment coming in there. He can be my long lost brother. The Bellator shows in Connecticut are only a few hours away from me. I think Ben Doucette, one of our MMA opinion lads, is offering himself up for Ryan the Hulk Spillane there, Liam.
I'm sure Ryan will be absolutely delighted.
He's not even made it a challenge.
Very good. And the final comment we have, we'll end on this question, guys. That it's just going back to what we were talking about in the summer events. Didn't Dana mention Zhang versus Rose in China? And Liam, you can take this first, I suppose. Are we likely to see a show in China, given everything that's going on at the moment?
Yeah, I don't think it's China. I think is it Singapore? I think it's one of the other Asian countries. Yeah. I think they're targeting. Is it Taiwan or Singapore? I'm not sure, but 100% they're going to get over there. I mean, particularly with this pandemic, the Asian countries have like done better because they're used to dealing with kind of previous pandemics like SARS and the other one. They had another one as well, but so those countries seem to have gotten on top of it a bit quicker than the rest of the world. So yeah, we're definitely going to see shows over there. And the other thing is the like just coming from the amateur side of things, from the IMAF tournaments, the wealth of talent coming through from China, Kazakhstan, Russia, all of the Eastern Asian countries have huge amateur teams, which will all become huge professional teams. And there's one better than another over there. So we're going to see a wealth of UFC shows in Asia over the next 5 years, no doubt.
Very good. And I suppose the question to you, Thomas, Zhang versus Rose in China, do you believe that's pay-per-view main event worthy?
Yeah, I do. I think Rose, certainly for the, I suppose for the diehard fans, she's become an icon and everyone is mad about her. So I think definitely she is. And if you're doing it in Asia, the pay-per-views, I don't know what it's like in China, but I mean, you've such a massive market there. If you're doing it and it's accessible, I think that they wouldn't be as concerned with how it does in Europe or even maybe in South America. Obviously, they'd prioritize the States, but I think a big focus would be on getting it opened up to the Asian market more.
I think you go to prison if you don't buy it in China.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Or else they don't let you on the subway or something.
They'll take your organs.
And Mr. Andy Hickey, what's your opinion on this fight? I think it's pay-per-view main event worthy.
Yeah, look, if they're going with that fight, or if they're going with China or Asia at the market, I don't know why they're going to go with Zhang versus Rose. I think, you know, if you're looking to break over there, you go with Zhang versus Zhang Yaonan. Like, I didn't pronounce her second name. Zhang, you know, she's on like a 7-fight win streak. Ranked third in division. You know, bring that whole market together. I think it's probably a better one if you're trying to crack that market. Rose is obviously a big Western draw.
Yeah.
Not the correct word there, but yeah, it's not pay-per-view material for me, to be honest.
Yeah, and the same question to you, David.
I agree with Andy, to be honest. I think, you know, the bigger draw is the fight that Andy mentioned, but it's doable. You know, it's very doable. It could happen. It could that could be one of the ones we're talking about that might happen later in the year. You know, after the summer maybe. I think the summer is cemented as Poirier McGregor, but after that, who knows?
Yeah. Definitely. And listen, we're going to let you go. We're going a little bit over time. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we will have another one of these roundtable discussions after UFC 259. For the moment, we're going to be putting them out after the big pay-per-view events. If you have more interest in them and you want to see them, let us know, and we might start doing them weekly. But for now, we will go after the pay-per-view events. Listen, lads, thank you very much for coming on the line today, and thank you for your discussion topics.
Pleasure, lads. Pleasure.
Mine was the best, obviously. See you later, lads.
Cheers. Thank you.